Mom, you left the stove on, again. If I hadn't come by, you would have burned the whole house down. Leo's voice was calm, dripping with that smooth, practiced concern that everyone else found so charming. He stood in my kitchen doorway, shaking his head. A disappointed smile plastered on his face. I looked at the stove. The dial was turned to high. The blue flame was hissing angrily under an empty pot. But here is the thing. I hadn't cooked since breakfast, and it was now 4 in the afternoon. I had been in the garden, pruning my hydrangeas, for the last 2 hours. I knew, with the absolute certainty of a woman who had run a logistics company for 30 years before retiring, that I had not touched that stove. I didn't leave it on, Leo, I said, taking off my gardening gloves. My voice was steady, though a cold prickle of unease was starting to spread down my spine. I haven't been in the kitchen all afternoon. See? This is what I'm talking about, Leo sighed, walking over to turn off the burner. He exchanged a look with his wife, Carmen, who was sitting at my kitchen island, scrolling through her phone. She looked up, her eyes wide with faux sympathy. "Eleanor, honey," Carmen cooed. Her voice like syrup, poured over broken glass. "It's happening more and more lately. Last week, you lost your car keys. Yesterday, you forgot our lunch date. And now the stove. We're just worried about you." I looked at them. My son, 40 years old, handsome in a way that hid his weak chin, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car. And Carmen, 10 years his junior, polished to a high shine, looking at my kitchen cabinets as if she were already measuring them for replacement. "I didn't lose my keys," I said sharply. "They were in the refrigerator. Someone put them there." Leo chuckled, a low, condescending sound. "Mom, who would put your keys in the fridge? The ghost of Christmas past? You put them there. You're forgetting things. It's normal at your age, but it's dangerous." He walked over and put his hands on my shoulders. His grip was firm, possessive. "That's why we need to talk about the accounts, Mom. The bank called me. They said you made some erratic transfers last month." "I did no such thing." "You did," he insisted gently. "You just don't remember. Look, Carmen and I have talked it over. We think it's time I took over the day-to-day management of your finances. Just to keep you safe. We'll set up a direct transfer to my account next month, and I'll pay all your bills. You won't have to worry about a thing." I looked into my son's eyes. I saw the reflection of my own face. A 68-year-old woman with gray hair and wrinkles. But behind his blue irises, I didn't see love. I saw calculation. I saw a man looking at a problem he wanted to solve. And that problem was my autonomy. "I'll think about it," I said, pulling away from him. "Don't think too long, Mom," he said, his tone hardening just a fraction. "We're bringing the power of attorney papers to dinner on Friday. It's for your own good." They left 10 minutes later. As soon as Their BMW pulled out of the driveway. I walked to the kitchen, locked the door, and leaned against it. My heart was hammering, a frantic rhythm, against my ribs. I wasn't senile. My mind was as sharp as a tack. I did the New York Times crossword in pen every Sunday. I managed my own stock portfolio and beat the market average 3 years running. But my son was gaslighting me. He was moving my keys. He was turning on my stove. He was trying to make me believe I was losing my mind so he could take control of my money. The question wasn't if he was doing it. The question was, why now? Leo had always been spoiled, yes. He liked expensive toys and easy living. I had bailed him out of a few failed business ventures in his 20s. But for the last 5 years, he claimed to be a successful consultant. He drove a luxury car. He lived in a penthouse downtown. He acted like a man who had made it. So why was he suddenly so desperate for my money that he would risk burning my house down to get it? I needed answers. And I knew exactly who to call. Frank the Shark Delaney was a private investigator I had used, back in my corporate days, to vet potential business partners. He was 70 now, retired, and spent most of his time fishing. But he still had his license, and, more importantly, his contacts. "Frank," I said, when he answered, on the third ring. "It's Eleanor. I need you to dig into someone for me." "Eleanor," his voice rasped, like sandpaper. "Who's the target? A cheating boyfriend?" "My son," I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Leo. And his wife, Carmen. I want to know everything. Bank accounts, debts, lawsuits, gambling. Everything." There was a silence on the other end. Frank knew how much I loved that boy. "It's that bad?" "He's trying to commit me, Frank. He wants power of attorney. I'll have a report in 24 hours. While Frank worked, I went to war. I knew Leo and Carmen were coming back on Friday for the signing dinner. That gave me 3 days. First, I swept the house. If Leo was gaslighting me, he needed access. I checked my spare key hiding spot under the planter on the porch. It was there, but the stone was moved slightly. He had been using it. I didn't move it. I didn't change the locks. Not yet. If you want to catch a rat, you don't block the hole, you put down cheese. I went to the local spice shop. Yes, they exist, tucked away in a strip mall between a vape shop and a dry cleaner. And bought 3 tiny, motion-activated cameras and a high-sensitivity voice recorder. I placed one camera in the kitchen, focused on the stove. One in the hallway, where I kept my purse. And the voice recorder? I taped it to the underside of the dining room table, right where Leo liked to sit. Then, I waited. On Wednesday, Frank called me. "Eleanor," he said, and his voice was heavy. "You better sit down." "I'm sitting, Frank." "Tell me." "Your boy isn't a consultant. He hasn't had a paying client in 2 years. He's living on credit. He has 7 maxed out credit cards, a second mortgage on the penthouse that's 3 months overdue, and. Frank paused. And what? And he owes money to some very bad people, Eleanor. A loan shark operation out of Jersey. About $400,000. They gave him a deadline. End of the month. My hand tightened on the phone until my knuckles turned white. 400,000. He was drowning, and he decided his life raft would be my life savings. What about Carmen? I asked. She's worse, Frank grunted. She's got a rap sheet in Florida under her maiden name. Fraud, embezzlement. She married your son, thinking he was rich. Now that she knows he's broke, she's the one pushing him to liquidate. Well, you. I closed my eyes. The betrayal didn't break my heart, it calcified it. My son wasn't just greedy, he was weak. He had let a grifter convince him that his mother was disposable. Thank you, Frank, I said quietly. Send me the file. Eleanor, be careful, Frank warned. Desperate men do desperate things. If he owes these sharks money, he's scared. Scared men are dangerous. I know, I said. But he forgot one thing, Frank. What's that? He forgot who taught him how to walk. And I can sure as hell teach him how to fall. Thursday night, they came over just to check on me. I was ready. I played the part of the confused, frail old woman perfectly. I wore a sweater with a button done wrong. I let my hand tremble when I poured the tea. I called Carmen Carol twice. Oh, Mom, Leo sighed, exchanging a satisfied glance with Carmen. You're really struggling today, aren't you? I feel so foggy, Leo, I stammered, clutching my teacup. I don't know what's happening to me. It's okay, Carmen said, patting my hand with her cold, manicured fingers. We're going to take care of everything. Tomorrow night, we'll sign the papers, and you can just rest. Rest, I repeated vacantly. Yes. I'd like to rest. While I went to the bathroom, leaving them alone, in the kitchen, I checked the live feed from the camera I had hidden in the spice rack. I watched on my phone as Carmen opened my refrigerator and moved the milk to the cupboard. Then she took my reading glasses off the counter and hid them behind the toaster. She's totally gone, Carmen whispered to Leo. Did you see her hands shaking? It's going to be easy. I don't like it, Leo muttered, pacing the floor. She's my mother, Carmen. She's a cash cow, Leo, Carmen hissed. And right now, she's the only thing standing between you and a pair of broken legs. Do you want the Russians to come back? Do you want to lose the penthouse? Leo ran a hand through his hair. No. Of course not. Then we do it. We get the signature tomorrow. We put her in the Sunset Meadows home on Monday. The cheap one, not the luxury one. And we sell this house immediately. The market is hot. We can get 800 grand for it, cash. Okay, Leo said, his voice resolving into a cold determination. Okay. Let's do it. I flushed the toilet, to cover the sound of my own rage. They were planning to put me in a state-run facility. A warehouse for the forgotten. They were going to sell the home my late husband and I had built, brick by brick. Just to pay off his gambling debts and her shopping habits. I walked back into the kitchen, looking confused. Where are my glasses? I can't find them. Oh, Eleanor, Carmen sighed, pulling them from behind the toaster. You put them here. You really need us. Yes, I said, taking the glasses. I suppose I do. Tomorrow night, then? For dinner? Tomorrow night, Leo agreed. I'll bring the notary. You just make that pot roast you used to make. Let's have a nice family dinner. A celebration, Carmen added, smirking. Yes, I smiled back. A smile that didn't reach my eyes. A celebration. Friday morning, I went to the bank. I didn't withdraw my money. That would be too obvious and frankly, too dangerous to carry around. Instead, I opened a new trust. An irrevocable trust, with a very specific set of beneficiaries. The local cat shelter, the public library, and a scholarship fund for underprivileged girls. I transferred 95% of my liquid assets into it immediately. Then I went to the safety deposit box. I retrieved a specific item I hadn't looked at in 20 years. A heavy, black ledger that my husband, a man who didn't trust computers, used to keep. Then I went home and started cooking. I made the pot roast. I roasted the potatoes. I glazed the carrots. The house smelled like Sunday afternoons and childhood comfort. It smelled like a home. But beneath the smell of rosemary and thyme, there was the metallic scent of a trap snapping shut. I set the dining room table with my best china. I lit the candles. I placed the voice recorder, now fully charged, under the table again. And then, I went to the study. In the corner, behind a painting of a ship at sea, was a wall safe. Leo knew about the safe. He knew his father used to keep emergency cash in there. He had asked me about it a dozen times over the years. Mom, what's in the safe? Nothing, Leo. Just old papers. Tonight, that safe was going to be the centerpiece of the evening. I placed a single, large envelope inside. And next to it, I placed a small USB drive containing the video files from my kitchen camera and the audio of their conversation. I closed the safe. I checked my watch. 6:45 in the evening. They would be here in 15 minutes. I went upstairs to change. I didn't put on the frumpy sweater with the mismatched buttons this time. I put on a sharp, black blazer. I put on my pearl necklace. I applied a layer of red lipstick. The kind I used to wear when I was negotiating contracts with union bosses. I wasn't the confused grandmother anymore. I was Eleanor Vance, and I was about to fire my own son. The doorbell rang at 7 sharp. I took a deep breath, smoothed my blazer, and walked down the stairs. Coming. I called out, my voice pitching up into that wavering, old lady tremolo, one last time. I opened the door. Leo was there, holding a bottle of expensive wine. Carmen was beside him, wearing a dress that showed too much cleavage for a family dinner. Clutching a leather portfolio folder that I knew contained the power of attorney documents. "Hi, Mom." Leo beamed, stepping inside and kissing my cheek. "Something smells amazing." "It's the pot roast," I said, ushering them in. Come in, come in. You're just in time." They walked into the dining room. Leo's eyes immediately darted to the painting of the ship in the study. He was practically salivating. "So, Mom," Carmen said, setting the leather folder on the table with a heavy thud. "We thought we could eat, have a little wine, and then sign the papers. The notary is coming at 8:30, so we have plenty of time." "That sounds wonderful," I said. "But before we eat, I have a surprise for you." Leo froze. "A surprise?" "Yes," I said, leaning in conspiratorially. "You know how you've always asked about the safe, Leo? The one behind the painting?" His eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. "Yeah." "Well," I whispered. "I lied. It's not empty. Your father left something there. Something very valuable. And since I'm losing my faculties, I think it's time I gave it to you. Before I forget the combination." Carmen grabbed Leo's arm, her fingernails digging into his suit jacket. "What is it, Eleanor?" "Cash. Jewelry." "Cash," I lied smoothly. "Lots of it. Dad didn't trust banks, remember? He called it his rainy day fund. I think there's about, I don't know, 500,000? Leo looked like he was going to faint. 500,000. It was exactly enough to pay off his loan sharks and save his penthouse. It was his salvation. "Mom," he choked out. You want to give that to us?" "Of course," I smiled sweetly. "You're my son. I want you to be taken care of. Shall we open it before dinner?" "Yes." Carmen squealed, forgetting her cool persona entirely. "Yes, let's open it now." "All right," I said, turning toward the study. "Follow me." I led them into the small, book-lined room. I walked to the painting and swung it open. The steel face of the safe gleamed in the dim light. "Now," I said, my hand hovering over the dial. "This is a very special moment. I want you both to savor it." "We are savoring it, Mom," Leo said, his voice trembling with greed. "Open it. Please." I spun the dial. Left to 20. Right to 15. Left to 40. The tumblers clicked. A heavy, satisfying sound. I grabbed the handle. I looked at my son one last time. I looked for any hesitation, any sign that he cared about me more than the metal box in front of me. I saw nothing but hunger. "Happy birthday, Leo," I whispered, though his birthday was months away. I pulled the handle down and swung the heavy door open. Leo and Carmen lunged forward, practically shoving me aside, to look into the cavernous space. But there were no stacks of cash. There were no gold bars. There were no diamonds. The safe was empty. Except for a single, thin manila envelope, resting on the metal shelf. "What is this?" Leo shouted, his voice cracking. "Where's the money? You said there was money." "Open the envelope, Leo," I said. My voice wasn't wavering anymore. It was cold. Steel. The voice of the CEO I used to be. Leo ripped the envelope open. He pulled out the single sheet of paper inside. It wasn't a check. It was a printout. A screenshot of a text message conversation between him and Carmen from 3 days ago. "Carmen. We need to drug her tea if she doesn't sign." Leo. "No drugs. Just pressure. We get the house, we sell it, we pay the Russians. Then we dump her at the state home." Leo went pale. He stared at the paper, his hands shaking so hard the paper rattled. What is this?" "Read the second page, Leo," I said, crossing my arms. He pulled out the second sheet. It was a forensic accounting report of his debts. The 400,000 to the loan sharks. The maxed out credit cards. "Mom," he whispered, turning to look at me. The hunger was gone from his eyes, replaced by pure terror. "Mom, I can explain." "No, you can't," I said. Carmen snatched the papers from his hand. She scanned them, her face twisting into a snarl. "You old witch. You were spying on us?" "Yes," I said calmly. "I was." "Where is the money?" Carmen screamed, advancing on me. "Where is the 500,000? I know you have it." "There is no 500,000 in this house, Carmen," I said, standing my ground. "But there was money in my accounts. Until this morning." "What did you do?" Leo gasped. "I gave it away," I said, savoring the look of horror on their faces. "I put it all in an irrevocable trust. The beneficiaries are the local cat shelter and the library. You can't touch a cent. Not now. Not when I die. Never. You crazy old." Carmen lunged at me. But before she could reach me, a loud, authoritative knock echoed from the front door. Boom. 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 "Police. Open up." Leo froze. "Police?" "I invited a few other guests to dinner," I said, checking my watch. "They should be right on time. You see, Leo, conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, and intent to cause bodily harm. Those are serious crimes. But I think the FBI is more interested in the money laundering scheme you've been running through your consulting firm for those loan sharks. Frank found that out this morning." "FBI?" Leo squeaked. The front door burst open. I had unlocked it before they arrived. Uniformed officers and 2 agents in suits swarmed into the hallway. Leo Vance. Carmen Vance. An agent shouted, stepping into the study, with his gun drawn. Hands where, I can see them. My son, the man I had raised, the boy I had loved, more than my own life. Looked at me, one last time. He didn't look like a man, anymore. He looked like a frightened child, who had broken a vase, and knew there was no glue, in the world, that could fix it. "Mom," he sobbed, as they cuffed him. "Mom, please. Help me." I looked at him. I looked at the son, who had tried to gaslight me, steal my home, and throw me away, like garbage. "I am helping you, Leo," I said softly. "I'm teaching you the lesson I should have taught you 20 years ago. Actions have consequences." They dragged them out. Carmen was screaming obscenities. Leo was weeping. The house went quiet. The police took the evidence. The recorder, the USB drive, the papers. They took statements. And then, finally, they left. I was alone. I walked back to the dining room. The candles were still burning. The pot roast was sitting on the table, cold. I sat down at the head of the table. I poured myself a glass of the expensive wine Leo had brought. It was a Cabernet. Full-bodied. Excellent. I took a sip. I looked around my empty house. It was silent. It was safe. It was mine. I wasn't a victim. I wasn't a senile old woman. I was a mother who had done the hardest thing a mother can do. I had cut out the rot to save the tree. I took another sip of wine. To memory, I whispered to the empty room. "And never forgetting who you are." And then, I finally ate my dinner. The pot roast was delicious.